Hello and welcome to the Golden Wheel Tavern. It's so good to see you all again. It's so heartwarming to see familiar faces, new faces. I'm so glad we get to do this, and I'm glad of everyone who spreads the word and lets people know about us. But you're not here to listen to me talk on and on about all of you wonderful listeners. Instead, you're here to hear about our Tales from the Tavern's tables. No bartender's brew this time.
No, because I work at 5 a.m.
We just haven't had a good bolt of inspiration, you know?
Maybe send me a character.
Send the bartender character to any of our social medias. You can find them in the description. Now, our Tales from the Tavern's tables. I have deemed this episode the failure of the D20. The tale comes from our Monster of the Week campaign, or rather our Dungeons and Dragons campaign that has now reverted back to Monster of the Week campaign.
And may revert to another system.
The main thing was that it was Dungeons and Dragons for a while. If you listen to, I want to say like 3 episodes back, we talked about the Monster of the Week campaign being pivoted into a Dungeons & Dragons campaign. It has officially returned to Monster of the Week, but that's not what's important. What's important is a lesson that was hard learned by our DM while we were playing Dungeons & Dragons.
Listen, it wasn't even hard learned because of you guys. This is just a problem across the groups that I DM Dungeons & Dragons campaigns for. You think my Thursday group is rolling anything higher than a 10? No, the fuck they aren't.
Well, in this tale specifically, we, for like the first half of the session, not a single roll was above 10. Every single perception check, survival check, like dexterity check, any investigation check, insight check, anything was always like 10 or lower.
Yeah.
Which put the DM in a difficult situation.
Yeah, it's always a difficult situation when your parties aren't rolling high.
Yeah, so it was just repeated low roll, low roll, low roll. Eventually, the tides of luck reached more of a middle ground, and we would roll high and low, high, low, whatever. But for a while, it was slow rolls, and there were multiple hilarious failures that could have been avoided by that. Now, you have this with multiple groups.
Yes.
But the important note is that even though that was happening, you still continued onwards, and you had the party fail forward in most situations, which will be our topic for today.
Yeah, even in my other group, I had to do that this last week when they were trying to get into a castle. I don't remember the name of the guy's castle. He's the speaker of the town.
Mm-hmm.
If you've played Frostmaiden, then you may know which town I'm talking about and which castle I'm talking about. And they were failing so badly on their persuasion checks, and they weren't, so were like the actual players not coming up with good persuasive things where I could be like, oh man, because you're saying that, I can at least lower the DC. I'm like, guys. So instead, they walked away. The big orc, who was a changeling, shapeshifted into a hot blonde bombshell. The druid wild-shaped into a spider to hang out on her shoulder. And the other 2 jumped into the bag of holding. And they're gonna go back to try and convince their way in.
So, groups roll low, and sometimes the DM has to scramble to figure out what to do. Or sometimes a DM will utilize what we'll be talking about today, which is failing forward mechanics. Before we get to that, though, I just want to say thank you to everyone who follows us on social media, who shares our posts and that kind of stuff. I just want to put it near the start of these episodes that we do have extended cuts, cold outros, cold intros, extended bits and diatribes and whatnot, all on our Patreon. So if you subscribe there, you get extra content. Jumping in from editing, just to say, there's like an extra 20 minutes, in fact, over 20 minutes on the Patreon cut this time with just all the like side talk and intros and outros. Really, if you want almost a double length episode, go subscribe to the Patreon. We have a Discord, so anybody listening who wants to join another Discord, there's a Discord there. You know, Discords are as fun as the people in it, and I think I'm pretty fun, so who knows?
You're the only one here who really thinks you're pretty fun.
And of course, if you want to support the podcast non-monetarily, the best way to do it is getting the word out there. That's it. Word of mouth, sharing the podcast, sharing the social media posts. It's really you guys that will make this into what it can be. So I thank all of you. And now let's not try to fail as we try to move forward to our Taverns Talking topic, which is failing forward. Now, this is a term thrown around in TTRPG communities and whatnot. And I want to sort of share our ideas on what failing forward is, how you can use it, why you should use it, examples of it, and whatnot. Because it's a neat idea that definitely newer DMs or sometimes old grognards just like refuse to use in any way, although it's probably going to make their sessions better. So, failing forward, I think there are two main categories of failing forward, which is the forward moving fail and the failing with style. So, forward moving fail is going to be, let's say I ask the party, like the party's climbing a cliff face, and I ask them to make an athletics check, and one of them fails. Rather than just fail to climb the cliff face, they're going to make it up the cliff face, but they're going to lose some resources along the way. They drop some items, they fall and take some damage, but clamber the rest of the way up. Birds attack them on the way up, you know? Mm-hmm. Some sort of failure that the fail state isn't a dead end, but it costs them in some way and the scene continues moving forward. The movement of the scene forward is essentially the defining factor of how I'm defining this forward fail. Okay. That sound good to you?
Sounds good to me.
The other one I want to propose is failing with style. That's going to be, instead of necessarily the scene moving forward, that's going to be, oh, you failed, take this cookie as a little treat. That's going to be, failure gives you some sort of reward in some way. It balances out your, well, when we get into the examples, I'll give more specific examples, but it's like, oh, you failed. Yes, you don't climb the cliff face, but because you landed on the ground, you do find like there is because you're flat on the ground, you can see there's actually like a small like mouse hole cave at the bottom of this cliff face. You know, you get something from failing. It's not necessarily you move forward, but you get something.
Yeah, I can vibe with that.
So why would you want to fail forward?
Because sometimes, now I don't have any experience with this, but sometimes you're DMing a party and they can't roll above 10.
And
they can't even roll in the double digits sometimes.
That doesn't seem relevant in any way.
And it really stops the story if your party isn't rolling the numbers needed to continue the story. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you kind of have to improvise. You don't want to lower the DC on things because why would you make something when they've asked to do something hard? You don't want to make that easier because it's hard to do.
Yeah, that links into an advice I've heard before, which is when your player asks to do something, the DM has two options. Say yes, tell them to roll the dice. That's it, right? So if you're lowering the DC to a point that you're trying to make sure they succeed, then you might as well just say yes.
And I guess in those states, you could be like, do you have proficiency in that thing? And if they do, you can be like, okay, sure, I'll let you. Mm-hmm. I think there are ways to justify it so that everyone doesn't think they can do it.
Yeah.
Or you could just fail them forward.
Yeah, and failing them forward to prevent what I'm referring to as a low roll lockup.
What? I'm just suggesting.
Okay, go ahead and suggest.
Keep talking.
To prevent, causing them to fail forward to prevent a low roll lockup is really like, it works well. It works best as a, how do I want to phrase this? It works best as a trick pulled by the DM behind the screen. It's one of those, if you do your job right, nobody even knows you did anything. Because very much low roll lockups, if your party fails but you still give them something, that's going to clear up the lockup or treat the feel bads.
Yeah. Speaking from personal experience, there was once a time I went to a convention and the entire weekend when I would play anything D&D related, I couldn't roll above a 10. Mm-hmm. That was a real big feel bad.
Yeah, I think some failing forward would have helped you out in that situation.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have necessarily completely cured the situation.
It wouldn't wouldn't have stopped the feel bads entirely, but sure would have been nice.
It lessens the blow of constantly rolling low. Because, like, yes, I get it. Rolling low is part of the game. But there are days where you're just on a low streak and it sucks. Like, let's be honest. It sucks if you build a, like, fighter whose entire thing is I'm great at fighting. And then you get into combat and you're like, I roll a 3. I roll a 4. I roll a 3. I roll a 2. I roll a 5. I roll a 4. And none of your attacks hit ever. And you're just getting walloped on. Like, I don't care if you're an old Grognard. That's going to be a bad feeling that you're just like, yeah, I feel like I've been cursed today.
Yeah, especially when it lasts an entire weekend.
Yeah, so that sucks, and giving failing forward things, whether that's failing with style or forward moving fail, helps treat the feel bads, because at least you're still getting something out of those low rolls. Sure, it's not what you want. It's not what you're after, but you're getting something.
Yeah, like, you don't have to do it for every low roll, but if you have a player who's rolled low, like the past 8 times you've asked them to roll, maybe throw them a little bone.
Yeah. We're here to have fun. As I've said before, fun, most important thing. I'm not going to say the one phrase because then we'll have to do that clarification over and over. Another thing giving your players failing forward can allow for is a sliding success or sliding scale of success and failure. So, while technically in D&D this isn't a thing, it's a thing in a lot of TTRPGs, and a lot of people sort of use it in Dungeons & Dragons, which is that if you roll way above a check, you get more. If you roll just at a check, you get basic. If you roll below a check, you fail. But what failing forward can let you do is it gives you a way to have partial failure, where, like, let's say the DC's 10 for climbing the cliff face and somebody rolls a 7. Instead of just having them fail to climb, I might have them climb, but they drop a weapon. Mm-hmm. Their shield falls off their back. They lose some of their rations. Their rope breaks part of the way up. They free climb the rest of it, but now their rope is unavailable to them. Yeah. They lose something, but they still make it up. It's success at a cost.
Yeah. You can climb all the way up, but doing so disturbed the terrible monster nearby.
You can climb all the way up, but you take a point of exhaustion. You can do those partial failures or success at a cost with failing forward, which just gives you more tools in your tool belt, which, as a DM, you should be Batman. Now, we're going to get into some examples of failing forward, right? Now, the most obvious one, because it's kind of just a built-in example of failing forward in Dungeons & Dragons, which is missing, like, the perception check for a trap.
Ah, yeah.
You fail, but you're not stopped. It costs you a resource, HP, but it's not like, oh, you don't find the secret door, I guess go home now. Traps are very much an example of fail forward states built into Dungeons & Dragons and a lot of TTRPGs. Rather than, stop, you have failed to find the secret door, go home. It's just, oops, you failed, take some damage.
Okay, I think it would be really funny. Like, okay, your party is, like, exploring, like, a little wizard tower or some kind of, like, magical area. And they fail a check, and they're just, like, exploring this room for wherever. And they just get to hear a disembodied voice that's like, stop, you have failed to find the secret door. Go home.
Magic mouth spell, trigger being party has spent, or a person has spent more than 5 minutes in this room. The magic mouth triggers and says, stop. You have failed to find the secret in this room. Leave. There's actually a dickhead, fucking asshole, terrible, bitch-ass fucking trap in the Tomb of Horrors. That's all of the Tomb of Horrors, first of all. But the thing is like, it's this room, and if you spend long enough in it, knockout gas fills the room. And then this, like, roller shows up and rolls over the party and instantly kills them. Anyone who's in its way. So traps act as a fail forward most of the time. In fact, if you're gonna have a trap, make it a fail forward trap. Which pivots us into one of the ways to have a forward moving fail.
Now it's our construct.
Which is resource loss, right? So the easiest way to have a forward-moving fail is have your party lose a resource of some sort. We already covered this. For example, climbing a cliff face, the rope breaks, but you still make it up. Your rope's gone. You lose some HP. You get a point of exhaustion. You lose some sort of resource. It's success at a cost, which is a great way of doing failing forward. Because then your party still loses something. They lose in some way, but you don't have to be like, oh no, the party has failed to do anything ever. Here is a single tear.
I am so sorry, guys. You have failed to do everything this session. You have not progressed in the story at all.
Yeah, you avoid that by doing that.
So Monster of the Week has a sliding scale system in it. 6 or less is a failure, 7 to 9 is a partial success, and 10 and above is a full success. It lets the players kind of choose the consequence for their actions, which you don't have to do. But if you have like a general idea of like, okay, if they fail this thing, one of these things could happen. If you have like a general idea, like, yeah, if they failed this Arcana check, one of these things can happen. You can have a list of potential consequences just off to the side for you to reference and choose randomly, is what I'm getting at here. You don't have to come up with the consequence on the spot every time.
So also in Monster of the Week, you can get experience points by failing. That's one of the ways you get experience points is by failing rolls. So that's a failing with style that makes it so your like power gamer min-maxer type wants to fail more often so they can get the experience to get the abilities to min-max so they fail less often, but then they get less experience so they can't succeed as often, but they have a deep-seated fear of failure so they never rely on any abilities other than their best deck because they're going to fail otherwise, and then they'll have to deal with the consequences of that, which are bad. So instead they just min-max a single stat and rely on that stat for literally everything.
Only really relevant to D&D if you're playing with an experience, I suppose. You can't just level someone up every time they fail.
No, but this is just an example of if somebody fails, give them something. Even if it's not something necessarily physical, you can give them something meta-wise. Give them some knowledge. Give them
information.
Give them information. Like I said earlier, your person falls off the cliff face, hits the bottom, but because of their unique perspective, they can now see that like on one of the like underhangs, there's actually like a little cave entrance sort of thing.
Yeah.
Have them fail, give them something to reward them for failing, because then failing doesn't feel bad and it can lead to comedic moments to break up lots of tension.
Yes.
Now, we've yet to talk about this system in depth. We kind of did, but not quite. I believe our story last episode was from this system. But cowboys.
Big
cowboys
hearts.
with big hearts tie knots when there's an issue. And by that I mean there is a knot. That's what they refer to as issues as. Now, if you fail to resolve an issue, you just have to move on. Like, the problem is still there, and you just have to move on. You have to take your loss and move on with your day.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's an important fail forward that some DMs and players have to take to heart, is that sometimes your players fail to do something and they don't find the secret temple that you have written 7 pages of lore for. Sometimes the DM has to kill their darlings, and sometimes the players have to accept, well, you all rolled low on the perception check. There's nothing in this room. So don't be afraid, both players and DMs, to just say, well, that sucks. Aw, shucks. Time to get back on my horse and continue to try to get Shaft Glover's hat back from the Death Brothers.
Mm-hmm. Suppose I'll just have to kill myself next time.
Suppose I'll just have to use my death. So, how can one utilize fail forward tool?
Always have a backup plan if a player rolls a nat 1. If your players are doing something important, you need to prepare for their failure, because you don't have the guarantee that the dice are going to roll well, and if it's something that's really important for the story-wise, you need to know what's going to happen if they don't roll well.
Yeah, there's a common saying, which is the best laid plans never survive first contact with the party, because you might have this cool grand scene set up, and then the dice gods say, no, it's nat 1. Nothing occurs. The party doesn't get to where you want them to go, that kind of stuff. You need to have a backup plan in case the party rolls nat 1s and can't do anything. For example, taking from another little TTRPG, I believe Gumshoe has a mechanic that if you start solving a mystery, there are clues that you automatically get. No matter what, you cannot fail to get these clues. Gumshoe is a mystery solving TTRPG. You get these clues no matter what, because any other clue, no matter how obvious you might make it, your party might still roll nat 1s and not get a single clue. The best way to utilize, how to utilize fail forward tools, you have to decide whether the failure is a roadblock or not after the failure. So if not, drain some resources. If it is, give a reward for failure, right? Your party's not going to be able to break down the castle gate, although they failed, right? You're not just going to let them break down the castle gate. But maybe like a guard comes out and tells them to stop and they can now interact with this guard.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like if they fail to see a trap, you drain their resources. They lose some health, but they continue moving forward. So you have to decide whether or not it makes sense for them to pass this roadblock, although they failed. And if they still pass the roadblock, take away resources. If they don't pass the roadblock, give some sort of information, some sort of reward, or even just an NPC for them to interact with who might open another pathway.
Yeah.
When one door opens, another door closes.
Yeah.
And last but not least, use sparingly.
Yeah, like actual rewards used sparingly, like sending out an NPC to scold the party isn't necessarily a reward all the time, because they could fail at that interaction too. But like actual rewards, giving them more resources or, that sort of stuff, don't let them think that just because they fail, they'll always succeed.
Yeah. If every failure results in success, what's the point of failing?
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes you will have to tell your party, like I said, sometimes you just have to tell them, no, sorry, you didn't get the thing. So use sparingly, but use them, right? Put another tool in your tool belt. Just fail forward sometimes. It'll help lighten stuff up and it'll help keep everything moving forward like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Also, sometimes just let them fail because they'll come up with something more batshit to try.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and it'll be really entertaining.
It'll be funny for you as the DM.
Like shifting into a blonde bombshell, another one turning into a spider, and the other two jumping into the bag of holding.
Which has a time limit.
10 minutes divided by the number of people in there.
Which is 2.
I don't know if you have anything else you want to say.
Nope.
Okay, you want to hear about a monster?
Max's Monster Minute?
Maybe. Do you want to hear about a monster?
Sure.
Okay, we're going to talk about fire newts from the elemental plane of fire.
Fire newts?
They can be on the material plane, but like near hot stuff.
So they be near you.
Some of them can be warlocks. They look like salamanders, okay? And some of them serve the prince of evil fire and live in militaristic theocracies where they revere elemental fire in its most destructive incarnation and promote aggression and cruelty, and they're warlocks.
And they're warlocks.
They don't get Eldritch Blast.
Boo.
But they are warlocks.
Yay!
So this is just really funny to me, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way that this is worded in the book, right? It says, many of these warriors have a close relationship with giant striders, parentheses, in this book. And I know that they're probably trying to say that, like,
Giant
striders also show up in this book. You can find out more about them here. But it also kind of reads as fire newts only have close relationships with giant striders in this book.
Mm-hmm.
If you jump to another book, they don't have close relationships. They fucking hate each other.
Interesting. They're militaristic, so they'll like fight to the death if they're on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And then they don't have a good ability to tell what the enemy, like who's the dangerous one, but they can obviously be like, oh, here's a big strong barbarian, we're gonna attack him.
Yeah, their intelligence for the warlocks is 9 and the regular warrior is 7. They're not the brightest crayons in the shed.
No, they make for good, like, military fodder fighting sort of stuff.
Yeah.
They're good low-level creatures, and they're a good break from, like, the goblins and kobolds and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And also you can make them ride giant striders as mounts.
Yeah, and you can have, like, a little cavalry.
Which is cool as fuck.
That is cool as fuck.
So maybe instead of putting in your the goblin camp in your next campaign, maybe consider a tiny military campaign of fire newts.
Yeah, they're pretty neat. They're definitely not something your party's gonna necessarily be terribly familiar with. And they're fun militaristic guys. So that's fun. Have fun with that. Quizbo!
How do you want to start out? Hard, easy, medium?
I mean, I like my eggs over easy, so.
Okay.
Even if I can't make them that way.
I am so bad at that. What 8th level abjuration spell protects a willing target from divination, telepathy, charm, and psychic damage?
And psychic damage.
Yes.
Is that non-detection?
No.
No. 8th level abjuration spell protects them from, what was it?
Divination, telepathy, charm, and psychic damage.
And it's not mind blank, is it?
It is!
It's mind blank?
It's mind blank.
I thought mind blank was like an aggro spell.
No.
Oh, okay.
In Faerun.
Oh, I'm already out.
What is the name of the mercenary company, also called the Black Network, that was founded by the wizard Manchun?
Is it the Zentari?
It is.
The only mercenary company I can tell you about.
Manchun.
Manchun.
What famous...
When will that guy show up? Our Agnar, our orc friend, Manchun.
What famous comic book publisher did TSR partner with on the Dungeons & Dragons animated series 1983 to 1985?
IDW.
You don't what?
No, that's the answer I'm giving. IDW.
That's a comic book publisher?
I think so.
I don't fucking know.
Okay.
That's not the answer.
Oh, that's the answer.
Marvel?
Ah, damn.
What sea creature
Uh-huh.
do Dybuks,
Okay.
Dybbuks,
Yep.
resemble in their natural form?
Eels.
No.
Damn.
Jellyfish.
Oh, okay. Really?
They are translucent and can fly, trailing long tendrils through the air.
But then they turn into weird zombie-looking dudes.
He flies through the air with the greatest of ease. That daring young man on the flying trapeze. His movements are graceful.
Because whenever I think of Dybuks,
does please. Oh. Huh.
But apparently, yeah, they possess corpses.
Huh.
So they don't actually have a picture of the actual Dybbuk in its usual form, which explains why I don't have the mental image of that. Instead, I have it as the guy in the cool coat.
Ah. Well, that's it for our non-paying subscribers.
Is that 4 questions?
That was 4 questions.
Yep, because it was Zentarim, Mind Blank, Marvel, and a jellyfish.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's all the Quiz Bowl for you non-patrons. Just kidding. I very much appreciate the non-patrons, so don't...
I mean, we're not kidding about this being the end of the Quiz Bowl for the non-patrons.
Yeah, I was just kidding about how slightly disappointed I sounded. I appreciate the non-patrons very much. I appreciate any of you who spread our podcast any way you can, whether that's word of mouth, sharing our social media posts, liking our social media posts, writing the name of our podcast down on a piece of paper and folding it into a paper airplane and throwing it off of a tall building. We appreciate everything you do, and we appreciate every one of you who listens. Thank you so very much. If you want to find us on any of our social medias, it's the Tavern Keeps Guide on basically everywhere. Mastodon, Blue Sky, Twitter, still calling it Twitter, refusing to do the other one, Tumblr, TikTok. You can sign up for our Patreon at patreon.com/The Tavern Keeps Guide. You can find us basically anywhere social medias are found under either The Tavern Keep or The Tavern Keeps Guide. Thank you so very much for listening. We appreciate every one of you. And as always, make sure to tip the barmaids.